United States Code, Title 18, and this is Part 3, Chapter 306, subsection 4108. I'm going to read it to you how most people read it. Okay? I'm going to take off my glasses so I can read it good. Prior to the transfer of an offender to the United States, the fact that the offender consents to such transfer and that such consent is voluntary and with full knowledge of the consequences thereof shall be verified in the country in which the sentence was imposed by a United States magistrate judge, or by a citizen specifically designated by a judge of the United States, as defined in Section 451 of Title 28, United States Code. The designation of a citizen who is an employee or officer or of a department or agency of the United States shall be with the approval of the head of that department or agency. B. The verifying officer shall inquire of the offender whether he understands and agrees that the transfer will be subject to the following conditions. When you read, does anybody understand that?
No.
Okay, so let me tell you who wrote that. A lawyer wrote that, and they wrote it in terminology that we can't understand. And so we don't want to sound stupid, so the judge says, "Do you understand that?" What do you say?
Yes. No.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, you go to court. This is what they're wrapping everybody under their jurisdiction. This is Title 18. I said this to a judge. I said, "Are you referring to Title 18, Part 3, subsection 4108? And the judge goes, "What are you referring to?" And I go, "The consent." Because he said, "Do you understand that you're waiving your rights?" And I said, "No, I don't understand that. Why would I do that? I want all the rights I can possibly get in this court." I said, Are you referring to Title 18? And he looked at me without blinking and he goes, "What part?" Well, there's at least 306 parts, chapters, and there's. So here's what I know. In the U.S. Code, under definitions, it says the United States definition of the United States is a corporation. Okay? It doesn't say a government, it says a corporation. So now that we know a corporation, if we look up the word corporation, has anyone ever looked up a corporation? They have stockholders, that's the big part. They also have a board of directors. And the corporation is run and operated by the board of directors. So if the United States is in fact a corporation, I don't want to step on anybody's toes if you're here for a first time and you're new, okay? Just do some investigation. So here's what I did. It says, are you with me? Okay, let's look up the definitions of the word in this code. And remember, this is just a code. So I didn't get to do code, but if you were in a Boy Scout, you have a code of honor, right? If you break the code of honor, can you go to jail?
No.
Why? Because it's not a law, right? Okay, codes are for a group of people that agree to abide or behave in a manner that's consistent with a code. Okay, so remember, the U.S. they're giving us notice. This is just a code. This is not law. So if you guys act like you're under this code, you're going to pay the fine for breaking this code. Okay, so I use the electric law website, and the reason why I do electric law is because it has the terminologies that attorneys and judges use. So it's really good to use that, but I also like the Black's Law Dictionary. So we're going to start all over with 4108, verification of consent of offender to transfer to the United States. Okay? If you look at, we already went over the United States. Now, some people think the United States is exactly the same thing as the United States of America with different capitals. You're wrong. It's much different. America is not the same thing as the United States, nor is North America the same thing as America. Okay? I mean, when you say North America, we're talking about Mexico, America, and Canada. Okay, now, I just took the words. So it says prior to the transfer. So let's look up the word transfer. So I look up the word transfer. I skipped the part right there where it says, okay, first is the United States. The same place or thing as the United States of America. And to some it is. But to the watchful eye, it's two separate and distinct places far away from each other, yet they're so close they're literally on top of each other. When you walk into the court, you are actually walking into a foreign country. The court's goal is to obtain your consent before it moves forward and transfers your person to their country or their state. Like every state has its border, we need to know where the borders are. We need to know where the borders are for the court. Okay? And the borders are realistically in the words you speak, the way you conduct yourself, and the mannerisms in which you treat the judge. Okay? If you act like a slave, they're going to treat you like one. If you act with responsibility, and like you are not a slave, and you're not a citizen, and there's no contract in place, then he is going to treat you accordingly. Okay? So the word transfer, the act by which the owner of a thing delivers it to another person with the intent of passing the rights which he has in it to the latter. Does anybody hear that? I'm going to transfer my rights to the judge. Okay? And once I do that, if I had the right to put me in jail, he now has the right to put me in jail. Or he has the right to impose a fine or levy on me. Okay? Now, if I don't transfer that right to a corporation, the corporation comes from the word corpse. It means he's dead. Okay? That corpse cannot do anything without me moving it. By me giving him by transferring something to him, he now has it. So this is what they're looking to do. They're trying to transfer your rights to them. They have to do it every time you walk in. They can't do it once and it's good for the rest of your life. Every time. Okay. To transfer means to change. For example, one may transfer a legacy, and then there's these 3, first, second, and third things. The third one is the most important. It says, by the change of the person who has bound to pay the legacy, as I direct the sum of $100 which I directed should be charged upon my house, which means estate, which I gave to Quorum, shall be paid by my executors. Okay, so if you understand what that says that I can tell Jim to pay my bill.
I like that.
The judge, realistically, is the trustee. The executors, took our birth certificates. They funded the nation, and now we are the sponsor of the credit. We are the sponsor why the corporation is able to operate, is because of our signature and because of what our value is. Okay, so the offender. Now, if this gets too deep and if I get way off in the deep end, I'm sorry. We'll take a break or we'll just stop. But when you get pulled over by a highway patrolman, you're an offender. At some point, you show up for your first hearing, and now you're the defendant. How did they do that? It's a magic wand. I'm serious.
I get it.
If you guys have ever been pulled over, it says you have committed offense. You are an offender, and you sign. Without signing for guilt, you're going to appear. Okay. Well, if you sign that document, you entered a contract. It's a contract because there's 2 people on it, and it's actually a negotiable bill. Mm-hmm. Okay. It means you signed something to be paid for in advance. Now, without saying too much about this, you need to take care of that ticket within 3 days. If you don't, you're turned into a defendant. I'm going to go into some of the stuff, what it says in Title 18 in the dictionary. It talks about Title 18. Because you don't come in early enough, they treat you like a juvenile delinquent. And that's what they call you in Title 18. Because you can't handle your affairs, we're going to be your mom and dad for you. And we're going to take care of this for you. Okay, so offender. A person who has been convicted of an offense or has been adjudicated or adjudged to have committed an act of juvenile delinquency, and it specifically says 18 U.S.C. And that's what we're checking out.
Where's this definition, Bill?
The definition is in electric law.
Electric law?
Yeah, electric law. And if you look up electric law on the internet, it'll show you that. So this is, I'm going to go over the same thing again. I believe that we have 3 days to settle all disputes on the private side before it is brought to the public side. When we don't, we have literally changed from an offender to a defendant. Our dishonor has moved the thing to default, and it says the court sees us as a juvenile delinquent. We don't show up and settle the issues without being called to by a court summons 20 to 30 days later. That makes us a defender now. So if you look up the word consent, consent is either express or implied. Express when it is given viva voice, out of your mouth, or in writing. Implied when it is manifested by signs, actions, or facts, or by inactive or silence, which raise a presumption that the consent has been given. An agreement to something proposed and differs from assent. Consent supposes a physical power to act, a moral power of acting, and a serious, determined, and free use of these powers. So they're saying again that we're giving the power to the judge to do to us what we should have done to him. Okay. Voluntary. I mean, these are all cool words. Now, these are all these words in the very front. Remember, prior to a transfer of an offender to the United States, the fact that the offender consents to such transfer and that such consent is voluntary and with full knowledge of the consequences. Okay. Now, what was really funny is when I asked this one judge about Title 18, he said, that's referring to a foreign country. I said, really? Can I read that to you? Because I didn't see the word foreign country in there anywhere. It doesn't say foreign country anywhere, does it? Okay, knowledge. Knowledge, information as to a matter or fact. Many acts are perfectly innocent when the party performing them is not aware of certain circumstances attending them. For example, someone may pass a counterfeit note and be criminally guiltless if they did not know it was counterfeit. Or someone may receive stolen goods if they were not aware of the fact that they were stolen. In these types of cases, it is the guilty knowledge or center which makes the crime. So the judge says, do you have knowledge? Do you understand what you did? And when you say yes,
Bam.
You're saying that you understand that you broke a law. And now you've lied. That's the worst thing, because you didn't break a law when you were speeding. You violated a code. And the code is in an act. We went over this, I think, 2 weeks ago. The Department of Motor Vehicles Act, which is what he was saying, read today. They were letting the DPS know. The Motor Vehicle Act was passed unanimously by whoever, okay? The word act, if you go to see your kids at a school play, they're acting, right? When you go there, you can tell they're acting because they all have on costumes and they're playing parts. Okay, so when you get pulled over by a highway patrolman, he's in a car that's all painted up so you know he's part of an act. He walks up in a costume, his hat, and stripes on his pants. If they wore that out to dinner and not being a cop, okay, they just wore that out, they'd be in trouble. Okay, so after he gives you a ticket, now he wants you to participate in an act, and the act is you broke a code, and we want you to come down to our playground. It's like a basketball court. That's why we call it a court, because we're going to play a game on it. And there's going to be someone there acting like a judge, and he's in his costume. He has a black robe on. And the suit against you, we're letting you know it's really not a suit. It's just that the attorney is wearing a suit. He's going to be there. And there's a bailiff dressed up in a bailiff's costume. And he's got some costume jewelry on called a gun and a badge and some handcuffs. Okay, I even know a bailiff who told me that he had plastic handcuffs because they were heavy. And he was lightening up his belt. He didn't have any bullets in his clips because he never needed them. He's in a real quiet town, so he had all this stuff on. And he had it all done up in plastic because it was too heavy to carry around every day. He had all this stuff under his desk so he could get to it if he needed to. It's all an act. And when we agree to play in the act, it comes with some severe consequences. Consequence. That's the next one. Do you understand the consequences? Remember what it says in there? Full knowledge of the consequences. And we say, yeah, we have full knowledge of the consequences. I could go to jail, and if you'll let me off, which is maybe a fine, I'll try not to speed anymore. I'll get my radar detector working better. The effect, result, or outcome of something occurring earlier. That's a consequence. The accident was a consequence of reckless driving. Now, look at number 2. An act or instance of following something as an effect, result, or outcome. An act. They tell you. Consequence has something to do with Title 18. It's an act. In general, the law of California declares that everyone is responsible for an injury occasioned to another by his want of ordinary care. I can't even tell you what that means, okay? But that is a brutal thing when you understand what I just read. If you're a secured party creditor, okay? you hear me? I'm going to read it one more time so you guys understand that. In general, the law of California declares, and this is in 1872, and it's never been overturned, that everyone is responsible for an injury occasioned to another by his want of ordinary care or skill in the management of his property or person. So how many people here are a person? Raise your hand. How many people have a person? All right. We're learning. See? This is what it takes. I got to say that I hang around some people that are so far beyond us here that they don't come to these meetings because they're flying like in the Matrix. They're flying everywhere. Okay, we're still trying to run to the phone to get out. You know, and it's like a phone to your lawyer. Help me! Help! And he's just flying in and out. He's just having these guys that I run around with. They understand all this stuff. So what I thought I'd do tonight with all this stuff, just so I touch on it one more time, is when you look at something, read what the words mean, because I did not understand what any of these words realistically meant, and yet I was agreeing to the terms of them. So we get on to verification, because it has to be verified after you consent willingly. Okay, verification. Whenever new matter is introduced on either side, that's the defendant or the plaintiff, the plea must conclude with a verification or averment. Have anybody heard the terminology negative averment? Verification or averment in order that the other party may have an opportunity of answering it. The usual verification of a plea containing matter of fact is in these words. And this, he is ready to verify. So they say that. Now, how do you verify a negative statement that you can't answer correctly? That's how they ask you questions, so that you can't answer. If I said to Jim, how many times have you been caught cheating on your wife? What's your answer? None. So I say to him, great. So you're really good at cheating on your wife without her finding out. It doesn't matter how he answered. If he said 1 or 2, there's no way to answer the question without being in the hot seat. Okay? So when they're verifying stuff, this is how they do it. They trick you. In one instance, however, new matter need not conclude with a verification, because the pleader, and it says, and then the pleader may pray judgment without it. For example, when the matter pleaded is merely negative, the reason of it is evident. A negative requires no proof, and it would therefore be impertinent or nugatory for the pleader who pleads a negative matter to declare his readiness to prove it. Okay, so it says practice. The examination of the truth of a writing, the certificate that the writing is true. Okay, so how many times have you ever been to court and the attorney says, just for instance, Mr. Faust was pulled over on March 15th, 1983, speeding at 162 mile an hour on a motorcycle. When do we ever... objection. Is he going to take an oath before he starts testifying? Anybody ever done that? I have.
You have.
The judge says, would you raise your right hand? The cop looked at me. I looked at the judge, and now he's got to swear that he's telling the truth. Okay? Now, if an attorney is there, can the attorney swear to the facts that he saw that the highway patrolman wrote the ticket for? He can't. That's secondhand knowledge. That's hearsay. So if the attorney won't raise his hand and he starts talking again, you go, Judge, tell him to shut up. He's blabbing, and he's causing contempt of court because he is talking about something that he has not first-hand knowledge of. It's all hearsay. So if he's going to testify, he's going to have to sign under penalty of perjury that what he's saying is the absolute truth, and he's going to have to bring the proof here today. Not some paper that the highway patrolman said he saw you doing it. Okay? Because we'll get to the highway patrolman a little bit later. Because I'm not participating in the act. And I told him when he pulled me over. I told him his costume looks silly. All right. Now here's how the plaintiff need not verify the truth of the complaint. The offender only needs to be presumed, and his own consent will work. Okay? So here's how they get consent. All rise. You stand up, you gave him consent. Mm-hmm. Sit down, you all sit down, got consent. You're dead. Doesn't matter what you plead. It does not matter what you plead after that point. They never give you a plea of innocent. They give you a plea of guilty, not guilty, or no contest. All three of them are all confrontational. Every one of them. It doesn't matter. At that point, you're already done. If you agree to consent to a plea. Now, I'm not telling you all this so that you can go in and cause more confrontation. I got really good news at the end of this. Take off your hat. Costanza did really good. Excuse me. We got to bleep that out. I didn't mean to use your last name.
I don't care.
He don't care. He's Superman now. He's flying in and out of the courts.
No, but not hardly.
Okay, well, the judge come in and said, take off your hat. And he said, if you can show me the rule in law and code that says I have to take off the hat, I'll agree, and
I'd be more than happy to take off my hat.
I'll be more than happy to take off my hat. And the judge, there isn't one. Nowhere. So the judge says, well, I'd like for you to take off the hat. And he goes, what'll happen if I don't? And the judge looked down and goes, nothing. Is that cool? I got to tell you. Now, here's what he was doing. The judge is just trying to get some consent there. That's all he's looking for. Okay? Now, that's one way to blatantly come in and get on the consent game. And I love it. I'm going to start wearing 4 or 5 hats there. Okay. So, this is some cool stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your name? I'll give you my name upon proof of claim. Do you have a claim here? What's the name on your claim? What's your name, by the way? This is my judge. He said, my name's Judge. I'm not going to give his last name because he's really a good guy. He seems to be a good guy. But he says, I'm Judge Brown. And I go, really? Guy, your parents must have been incredible. They named you Judge before you were Judge. Did they know you were going to be a judge when you grew up? That's your first name, Judge? He's looking at me like, what's your first name? He says, my name here in this court is Judge Brown. He's not going to give me his first name. Well, if he doesn't have to give me his first name, do I have to give him mine?
No.
I don't. But he's not looking for my first name. He's looking for 3 names. I'm first, middle, and last. That's part of a contract. 3 altogether, remember? Okay. So I'm just giving you stuff that you can start rolling around in your mind. Now, I'm not saying all this stuff so that we can go to court and be confrontational, because that is not what this is about. This is about so that you understand what's going on when you get there, before you get there. Okay? And knowing what's going to happen before you get there, some stuff needs to happen 3 days before, or 3 days, within 3 days of the time you get the ticket. Okay? Now, we get some really good, some really good battles that we have won in the 3-day rule. Okay? So if you guys want to get together with somebody here that's part of the assembly, we can point you in the right direction so you can start learning this stuff. Now, if you want to play in the Super Bowl and you want to win a traffic ticket like that, it makes a lot of sense to start practicing before you get there. Okay? One thing before you get to a court is you want to go see how all the players play on it and how good they are. So if you're really interested in doing some stuff, it's a good thing to go down and just see how a judge handles himself in the court. I went down to the biggest the biggest courthouse in Phoenix. And we went in there and sat down and we have watched some court cases. When I go to my little town and I walk into the court now and I just kind of slide into the back, okay, because I've established myself there a little bit. I'm not bragging, okay? The first time I went to court there, I almost threw up on the table right there because I was so nervous about what I was saying. But now when I slide in, you can see the judge look over at me and he's, Bill, are you on the calendar today? He calls me Bill. Don't you love it? I'm not Mr. Falk anymore. Bill, are you on the calendar today? No, I'm just here to say hi and see how everybody's doing and just to observe. Carry on. And he goes, oh, okay. And you can see. When you're on a plantation, you can't talk to the slaves. So you guys have come into a federal free zone here, and we're talking to you like you're not a slave. So when you leave here, if you start acting like a slave, don't start using this stuff, being a slave, because if you're going to try and get in both, it doesn't work. And I will tell you that there's a lot of people that are upset about being slaves, but they don't want to move off the plantation. They just want better living conditions. So if you feel that way, that's okay. That's your right, and we stand behind you in that decision. But if you want to move off the plantation and start your own, just like starting any new business, it gets a little lean at first, okay? There's no one there to help. You got to build your own house. You got to lay your crops down. You got to get your own horse. If you don't have a horse, you got to talk your wife into pulling that plow. Okay, one of the sentences in the verification process up here, it says that the sentence was imposed by the United States magistrate judge or by a citizen specifically designated by the judge of the United States. And if you look at that, magistrate judge, a judge of the United States are not the same thing. Okay, so when you show up there, you've got a judge that's actually trying to move you into his country, and he's going to do it via a ship, a vessel. And the vessel has, you know, the old warships that had the side railing and it had all the wooden poles coming up there and it had a bar across the top of it. And there's a little gate that opens so that you can climb on the ship. You can come through that gate. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
He's inviting you to come on in and contract with him. He's inviting you to come on over here on my ship, because if you come on my ship, my law is the law of the high seas. And once you're here, you're in big trouble. There ain't nothing you can do when you're on someone else's ship. So I'm saying all that because they're giving us notice. That bar right there is a very important part of consent. If you walk across that without establishing some boundaries or some rules for that judge to operate under, he's not going to operate under. You guys understanding all this stuff?
Yep.
Okay, if you don't, get together later on tonight and talk to somebody about that. Okay, the word judge here is used in two distinct positions. One is the United States magistrate judge, and one is the judge of the United States. It says it right in the U.S. Code. Yes, the judge quietly changes his robe of jurisdiction as he guides you quietly from the statutory law venue into an admiralty law venue. Admiralty law is a whole other animal. But in brief, it can only deal in or with contracts, expressed contracts or implied contracts. Remember when he said they've rescinded all their signatures off of all the contracts, and we need to be careful how we deal with those individuals. It didn't say persons, it said individuals. When I read that thing, it started popping out. Did it say U.S. citizens? We need to be careful how we treat these citizens. They said individuals. A person is a corporation. You're acting in the capacity of a corporation. And a corporation always falls underneath some other corporation. It has to. Because if you're a corporation in Arizona, you have an Arizona Corporation Commission number, right? Well, guess who all the states incorporated under? United States. So now you're nothing more than an employee. So if you were to walk into Walmart with sandals on and shorts, and you were having a drink, parking lot, maybe a refreshment, and you went in there to work and you clocked on and they saw you like that, what would the manager do? He'd say, you're out of here. 2 weeks off without pay. Don't ever come in here without safety toe shoes. You can't wear shorts in here, and you definitely can't be drinking in the parking lot before you come in here. And if you do it again, you have had it. In fact, we're going to go ahead and fine you. 2 weeks no pay. Now, what if I am not an employee of Walmart and I'm out in the parking lot and I have a swig? And I walk in with my shorts and sandals and I walk over to the alcohol aisle and I pick up alcohol, or I pick up some new swim shorts because these are a little dirty, and I walk back up there and they see me. What are they going to say to me? Nothing.
Paper or plastic?
Paper or plastic. The reason is because I'm not an employee. I'm not a citizen of that act. That code doesn't apply to me. With that comes responsibility. Okay? I can't be drinking and driving out in the parking lot. I can't be offending my neighbor while I'm in the court. I mean, I'm in the store, and I need to wait my turn in line. I need to be respectful. I need to uphold even the other slaves that are in there, citizens. I need to be respectful to them, because just because they don't know does not mean that they're not equal with me. Shall be verified in the country in which the sentence was imposed. So the word country. The word country is notice to us that we are about to leave the republic and enter into a foreign country. It is a key word to their jurisdiction. They must establish a boundary and give notice before we board their vessel and enter a contest to their commercial rules. It is well known that their country is associated with a bar, or the British Accredited Registry, or you guessed it, England. It seems that we Americans are still under the rule if they can establish consent, and they usually get it every time by voluntary consent. So, this is the way I study. When you look up understand, the word understand, if you split it up and turn it backwards, it means to stand under. And that's okay. I stand under God's laws. I stand under God. Okay, He's the Redeemer. He's paid for all my sins. And all I have to do is consent to the forgiveness. And the word forgiveness weighs really heavy in a court. Okay? When you ask for forgiveness, it's a whole different animal there. So I'm telling you all this stuff because if we learn every word that we say and we start changing our phrasing, we can start living. Okay? I mean, we can actually live instead of exist in fear. So, I got to tell you, if everyone today that received a citation for violating an act in Coconino County went to court and just tried part of this, there's probably, how many tickets wrote today? Got to be 10,000 tickets wrote. There has to be. If everybody just went and said, I don't consent to your jurisdiction unless you can show me the law, which I violated, and the contract that's in place and the notice that you gave me upon that contract. If that happened 10,000 times, the next time the judge showed up in court, he'd say, oh man, we're going to have to back off here. I mean, we got 10,000 yesterday, we got 10,000 tomorrow, 10,000 the next day. Now we got 30,000 cases that are all going to be put to hearings. We're going to have to back up. Let's just tell them that we'll take $25 instead of $100. See if they'll pay $25 to consent. We got to make it less money so that they don't mind paying it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you following me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So is there any questions tonight before we stop?
The three-day thing you mentioned?
It seems to me that everything you're saying to the judge, he's going to get madder and madder, and then when he finally finds you guilty, you're going to hang.
Okay. That's exactly how I felt. And that's a lot of the reason why we fold in fear, because we don't want to make it worse. I can tell you my own experience. I went in and started kind of getting with it with this judge, and he got out of line with me. Now, he's no better than me, right?
Right.
Don't we feel that way? He's no better. He puts on his pants just like me.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I believe that we're paying his salary. I would think what we were. So he was asking me questions, and I was trying to answer, and he interrupted me. And when he knew where I was going to answer something, he said, "All right, you're not William Del Faust. We're just going to put out a arrest for his warrant." And he takes his paper like this, and he goes, "Put out a warrant for William Del Faust." And I said, "Well, if you're going to arrest him, I brought him here today." And I handed him my birth certificate, and I go, "Here you go. I surrender the defendant to the court. I would like some visitation." So the bailiff walks over and he takes that and he looks at it and he starts to walk over to the judge, and they got eye contact, and he goes, "Is that a birth certificate? Is that a birth certificate?" He goes, "Yes," and he goes, "Give it back to him." Now we're playing ball again, okay? The clerk of the court hands him back the paper and he goes, "Do you have a license to practice law?" I said, "I don't need one. I'm not practicing law. I'm an attorney in fact, not in fiction." Okay, so he knows that one. Big deal. He goes, "Do you have a bar card?" And I go, "That's nothing more than a membership card to a club, and I don't belong to that club either." He looks down and he says, "Okay, then how are you appearing here today?" Now, isn't that cool? He didn't say I was right on any of those things, but they're not an issue anymore at this point in the case. I said, "I'm appearing in my unlimited commercial capacity," and I asked the court to do the same, because they're all limited liability corporations, and they know it. And what I just told him is that I got a big bond. I'm all bonded up here. I'm ready to go. If I make a problem for you, I got some bonds in place to cover all my sins. I got some insurance. Okay? So, when the judge sees it, you know what's going on, and you handle yourself accordingly, and not with disrespect. I believe that the judges, a lot of them, look at you and go, "All right, this guy has been studying. This is good." I had one judge who was trying to get me out of his courtroom. He just could not wait to get to his verdict, and I was arguing with him about getting to the verdict. I didn't want him to go there because I thought he was going to bind it over to a trial. And he dismissed the case immediately and walked out. So I'm telling you that, depending on the judge and whether it's a court of record or not, you have a lot of power if you understand that and you handle yourself that way. Now, I'm not saying to go out and get a speeding ticket and go try this out. Okay? In fact, we just haven't done that in a while. I haven't gotten any tickets. I'm regrouping. My wife is really happy because there's not like, when we used to go to the post office box, there'd be a letter in there from the attorney, state attorney, and I go, "Woohoo! The guy's an idiot, man. I can't believe And I go home, man, I open up that, man, I'm excited. I got some paperwork. She go, what, are you sick? Are you kidding, man? I mean, people open up a summons and they go, oh, golly. Because they don't know what a summons is. A summons is an offer to contract. That's all it is an offer. Okay. So, any other questions?
The 3-day thing, you mentioned the 3-day thing. So,
okay.
What do? You go into and talk to the clerk, or how do you?
Well, there's two sides in the court, okay, and without violating a trust issue here, there's a private side and there's a public side. The private side is where we need to handle all the issues before it's brought to the public, and we're guaranteed due process of law to exhaust all of our remedies on the private side before it's brought to the public. So if you show up within 3 days and you say, I'm here to settle the issue, and you're a secured party creditor, you've made all the attempts to come through the door. They won't let you in the door, you've still knocked on the door. Okay? So you've met all the requirements up to that point. Now all you have to do is back up your case with fact. Now remember, actors are acting in fiction. You're the only one there that can act. I shouldn't say act. You're the only one there that is there appearing in the real man form. You're the only one that can pick up a pen and cause something to happen. The judge can't even give you an order and enforce it on you unless you accept it. It's called the slider. Anyone ever seen the movie or the video? It's called YouTube, the website, but there's one on there called Bursting Bubbles of Government Deception.
Yeah.
I've watched it a bunch of times. Okay, it's called the slider. Now I'm gonna try and contract with Jim here. I want you to show you how this works in the court. There's an order here. Yeah, just pretend you're a citizen. Okay. Okay. Order here from the judge, and the attorney won't ever hand anything to you. Watch. Go to court. He'll go like this. Order from the judge. Now watch this. The attorney's going into the corner of his eye. He goes, got him. He took it. Okay, we got a contract. And then he just goes on about, okay, we're going to hearing in a couple of days, or we got to pay the fine and whatever. You sit down, you talk to the bailiff. He's going to give you some more paperwork. The slider. Okay? So here's what you do. Jim, don't act like a slave. Okay, now here's a couple different ways you can handle this. Here's an order.
Hand it back to me.
Pick it up and hand it back to me. Watch this. Now, watch this contract.
I don't accept it.
I don't know. I got the contract now. He doesn't have it anymore. It's called the last guy holding the hot potato. Right? Now, if you understand your secure party creditors, you can accept this. Just like it is, you can accept it and settle it right then. The best thing to do is settle it with the highway patrolman. Okay? Accept it right away. Okay, now this is what Winston Trout says. This is crazy. When they send you something in the mail, okay, first thing I do now is I open it up and I go, oh, they sent me a bill and they didn't send a check to pay for it. There's no check. That's crazy. Don't they know they're in dishonor? Law says if you bring an action, you also have to bring the remedy. Did you know that? That's the law. So there's no check. What do I do? I'm going to do my best to turn this into a check, and I'm going to return it right away so that they can get paid. Because with this big act that they got going on, there's a lot of costs involved, and I want to make sure that they can keep gas in those cars out there. Okay? That's being an honor. All right? Any other questions?
I had a question regarding when you go into court, they give you something, and you attempt to give it back to them, and they won't take it. I mean, how do you? I mean, you can't force somebody to take something.
Okay, they can't take it. Why? They're a corporation. What are they?
Dead. So how do you give it back? Then how do you say do you give it back?
You pick up their hand. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, the proof of acceptance and brought back into the court. You can also take it around to the clerk of the court and ask the shipper to deliver the cargo to the proper port. That's a bill of lading act. They've got another act in there, of course. We can participate when we need to. Or you can just not accept it right there on the spot. I don't agree to that. You got any other offers? I don't like that offer. Got anything else? I'm going to tell you that the judge is going to notice what you're saying. I don't accept that. I don't accept that. Or you can always conditionally accept it upon proof of something. Gordon Hall's got a great tape on YouTube. If you look up Gordon Hall, he knows just how to say, I conditionally accept all of it. If you can show me where in the law book that I have to accept it. Okay? There's no laws, you see. Since 1933, when they took the gold, all public laws were converted to public policy.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot break a policy unless you are part of the policy. Any other questions?
So it's like an insurance policy, kind of.
That's right. Go ahead.
How about photo speeding tickets?
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to give you any advice. Okay. This is just how I would handle that.
Entertainment purposes only. Yeah.
For entertainment purposes only. The law, the policy. Okay, we're getting down to policy. Policy says that you have to be notified and you have to sign to appear. If you haven't agreed to that, there's no appearance necessary. I got a bunch of them. I don't want to play. I don't want to play that game. So I don't send them back. It's kind of hard to find me. I mean, I've got a suite. It's about this big. It's got a number on it. And I get mail there. Sometimes they send the wrong mail there. They send a corporation's mail there, and I'm the real man, so I always send that back. Because if something comes in with a corporate name like Chevron or Walmart, my post office, what do you do with it? You write on there, not at this address. Return to sender, and you send it back without opening it. That's a polite thing to do, right? So if I get something to a corporate name that sounds a lot like my name, it's spelled in corporation print, I just say thank you very much, but there's no one here by that name. Are you guys following me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, you were talking about going on to the judge's ship. I know that the bar is there, but if you don't cross that bar, what can he do?
Well, if he tells you to cross that bar 3 times and you don't, without responding, you've acquiesced onto a ship. So there's a certain way that you need to say that. Now, I can't give you any advice. This is for information for, what is it? Entertainment purposes only. But this is what I said. Is it okay if I cross the bar and sit down at the defendant's chair while retaining all my unalienable rights, while in full effect, past, present, and future in the matter? That's all I have to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
The judge says, well, are you in fact Mr. Faust? And my answer is, no, in fact, I'm not. Fiction I am. But we're not talking about fiction here. You're asking me to lie? Are you kidding? Okay, so that's one way. The other thing is, the judge tells you to sit down. I say, I'm just going to go ahead and sit down. Now, what did I do? I just overruled his telling me to sit down, and I'm telling him what I'm going to do. Just happened to be it was the same thing, so that we're both in agreement. If he tells you 3 times to sit down and you don't, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to spend 5 days in the tank. Okay. A lot of my friends that are here today saw him call me in. That was smart, Dan. Okay. So, a question? Okay, go ahead.
I've been listening to some of the Gordon Hall stuff as well, and one of the things that they pound on in their material is that you don't make statements in court. For instance, when the judge says, are you an attorney? You don't say, I don't have to be an attorney. You say, do I have to be an attorney?
That's it. Do I have to be an attorney? Do you see? You turn that around into a question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great way to handle it. Dan Brown, come up here and read something that he got a copy of, and it's pretty interesting. If you guys know what an apostille is, that's where a Secretary of State verifies something that a notary signed so that you can move that document into a foreign country. So anyway, this is something from 1986. He's going to read it to you. He just picked it up. It's kind of interesting. We're going to see if we can get a hold of the senator who wrote it.
Not as tall as you are. So this is a letter from Wayne Stump, state senator, to the director of the Department of Public Safety, state of Arizona. It goes on to say, it has come to my attention that numerous individuals in our state have rescinded all of their contracts with the United States federal government, the state of Arizona, and each of its political subdivisions, establishing themselves as free men under the organic national constitution of the Republic of the United States of America.
Yeah.
You guys get that? Consequently, they may be driving without auto registration, driver's license, or any other evidence of contract. Because many law enforcement personnel may be unaware of the contractual nature of auto registration and driver's licenses, it is conceivable that this situation may lead to confrontation between these individuals and law enforcement personnel. I urge you to inform yourself and your personnel about this matter as soon as possible. If you would like to be briefed by someone knowledgeable on this subject, please contact me. In the meantime, inasmuch as this procedure is entirely appropriate when properly carried out, I would like to personally be notified of every such instance of confrontation in order that the persons involved and the public officials involved may be apprised of the correct procedure and the appropriateness of their actions on the part of each concerned. Then it goes on to give his phone number and everything.
What's the date? What's the date on that? That's the killer.
This was done December 10th, 1985.
Wow.
26 years ago. People in Arizona were rescinding their contracts and acting like free men, and it was being recognized.
No.
Well, I went to the law, met with a representative from Nebraska. He had this copy of the letter.
Wow.
So how do we get it?
We're making copies of it.
Sweet.
Oh,
Here's something else on the side where it's notarized. It says, I, Wayne Howard Stump, that's who the state senator was, do solemnly state that this is an exact and true copy of a letter that I wrote on December 10th, 85 while serving in the state senate of Arizona. And it's signed Howard Stump. And then it's got a notary by Stephen Green, and that's put on the side. So something has come up since then in 2004, January 2004, that this is an issue. So this isn't something new that we're doing. It's great. Isn't it great?
It is.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Tell us who they got. Apostille.
Oh, the apostille was Jan Brewer. Yeah. Who's now the governor. She was the Secretary of State then. Okay. An apostille is a form of legitimizing a document for use in a foreign country.